The chamber of the Galactic Tribunal buzzed with a tension that seemed to seep into the very walls of the cosmic citadel. Its domed ceiling shimmered with holographic constellations, a reminder of the boundless empire united under its rule. Rows of delegates, some human, others alien, sat in somber silence as the defendant was brought forth. Dracula, Lord of Shadows, emerged, his presence commanding even under the weight of the energy shackles that bound him. He wore a dark, flowing cloak that seemed to absorb the light, and his crimson eyes gleamed with contempt as they scanned the crowd. The infamous vampire, whose legend had once been confined to Earth, had become a galactic menace, a predator of entire star systems. Today he stood trial for crimes that spanned centuries and star charts. The accused is charged with the decimation of 17 colonies, the enslavement of 6 planetary populations, and the orchestration of rebellion against the Galactic Empire, boomed the voice of Chief Arbiter Khalsar, a towering figure whose crystalline form glinted under the chamber's ethereal light. How does the defendant plead? Dracula's lips curved into a sly grin. Guilty of existing, he said, his voice a rich baritone that sent shivers down spines. And of thriving where your pathetic laws fail. Gasps rippled through the gallery, a mix of fear and outrage. The prosecutor, a cybernetic entity named HFY, rose from its seat, projecting a series of holograms into the air. Each one displayed grim evidence: charred colonies, skeletal remains of victims drained of life, and testimonies from survivors. The evidence speaks for itself, HFY intoned, its mechanical voice devoid of emotion. This creature is not merely a predator but a plague upon the galaxy. He thrives on chaos, his very existence a violation of the order we have strived to create. Dracula chuckled, leaning forward as far as his restraints allowed. Order, he said. Your so-called order is nothing more than tyranny wrapped in starlight. I am a natural force, the predator to your sheep. Chief Arbiter Khalsar slammed a crystalline gavel, silencing the chamber. The defendant will restrain his remarks. This is a court of justice, not a stage for theatrics. Yet Dracula's defiance was palpable. Even bound, he radiated a power that unnerved many in the room. Among the audience, whispers spread like wildfire. Could the Empire truly contain such a force? And what would happen if they failed? The trial continued with methodical precision. Witness after witness recounted tales of horror, families wiped out, planets left in ruin, and the psychological scars inflicted by Dracula's reign. One witness, a young human named Mara, stood trembling as she described her colony's fall. He came in the night, she said, her voice quaking. We thought it was just a legend, but then we saw him. He drained our leaders first, then turned them against us. We couldn't fight back. We were cattle. HFY nodded solemnly. Thank you, Mara. Your courage in coming here is noted. The prosecutor turned to the tribunal. This is but one of countless stories, each a testament to the defendant's insatiable hunger and disregard for sentient life. Dracula's laughter rang out, cold and sharp. How touching. Shall we bring out a choir next? You label me a monster, but your empire, it consumes worlds just as I do. The difference? I do not hide behind noble lies. Enough, Khalsar said, his voice reverberating. The time for arguments is over. Let the tribunal deliberate. As the arbiters conferred, Dracula's gaze swept the room. He locked eyes with a delegate from the Rimward systems, who flinched and quickly looked away. Despite his captivity, he was not defeated. Not yet. After what felt like an eternity, Khalsar rose. The tribunal has reached its verdict. Count Dracula, you are found guilty on all charges. The sentence, termination by void suspension, to be carried out immediately. The gallery erupted in a cacophony of reactions. Relief, fear, even a smattering of cheers. Dracula, however, remained unmoved. Termination? He said, a dark amusement in his tone. You think death will end me? You cannot kill what is eternal. The execution chamber was a stark contrast to the ornate tribunal hall. It was cold, metallic, and unyielding, with a singular device at its center, the gallows of the stars. This was no ordinary execution method. It would disintegrate Dracula's essence, scattering it across the void to ensure no resurrection was possible. Dracula was led to the platform, his every step heavy with the weight of centuries. Yet he held his head high, his demeanor that of a king going to his throne. As the energy noose was placed around his neck, he spoke, his voice carrying through the chamber and beyond, broadcast to every corner of the empire. You celebrate my end as though it will bring you peace, he said. But mark my words, this act of vengeance will sow seeds of chaos you cannot fathom. You may destroy me, but Frankenstein will avenge me. He will rise and he will bring your empire to its knees. Before anyone could react, the lever was pulled. A blinding flash consumed the chamber and Dracula was no more. Silence hung in the air, oppressive and final. Yet his words lingered, a shadow over the victory. Far away, on a storm-racked planet hidden from prying eyes, a figure watched the broadcast. His stitched features twisted into a grimace of resolve. Frankenstein, the monster of Earth, stood in the dim light of his laboratory, surrounded by bioengineered horrors. They think this is justice, he muttered. But justice is coming. And it will not be swift. The war had just begun. The chamber of the Galactic Tribunal buzzed with attention that seemed to seep into the very walls of the cosmic citadel. Mirrored the fury within its most ceiling shimmered with holographic constellations. Deep within the labyrinthine corridors of his hidden laboratory, united under its rule, known simply as Frankenstein to allies and enemies alike, sat before his creations as the defendant was around him. An army of monstrosities waited in grim silence. His presence commanding even under the weight of the energy shackles that bound him. Frankenstein's hands, he wore a dark, flowing cloak that seemed to absorb the light, and his crimson eyes gleamed with contempt as they scanned the crowd. He muttered to himself as he worked. The infamous vampire, whose legend had once been confined to Earth, gods, had become a galactic menace, a predator of entire star systems. But they will learn the price of playing with powers beyond their comprehension. Centuries and star charts, glancing at a nearby screen with the decimation of 17 colonies. The enslavement of 6 planetary populations, a being who had orchestration of rebellion against the Galactic Empire, the spectacle of his death, the voice of Chief Arbiter Frankenstein, a towering figure whose crystalline form in his mind under the chamber's Frankenstein will avenge me. How does the defendant plead? Frankenstein's lips curled into a sardonic smile. Guilty of Dracula, he said. I will avenge the rich baritone that sends shivers down spines. The Galactic Empire's arrogance must be shattered. Thriving where your pathetic laws fail. He turned to his second in command, a hulking figure of the gallery, a mix of fear and outrage. The prosecutor, with a voice that carried both authority and named Lecture 7, rose from its seat, council, projecting a series of holograms into the air. The council convened in a cavernous hall grim evidence from volcanic rock, charred colonies, its walls skeletal remains of victims of advanced machinery, and testimonies from survivors. Frankenstein's the evidence speaks for itself. A reanimated alien tone with bioluminescent voice devoid of emotion. A rogue AI encased in a humanoid exoskeleton. This creature is not merely a predator but a plague upon the galaxy. And a werewolf cyborg whose eyes thrives on dim light. His very existence a violation of the order we have strived war machine. Biology, technology, leaning forward as far as his restraints allowed. Frankenstein addressed them with a voice like rolling thunder. Your so-called order is nothing more than tyranny wrapped in starlight. An execution broadcast across the galaxy. The predator to your justice. It was a message, Arbiter Khalsar, a warning to anyone who would dare challenge their dominion chamber. But the Galactic Empire has made a grave error. This is a court of justice, his eyes not a stage for theatrics. They believe fear is their greatest Dracula's defiance was palpable. Let us show them how wrong they are. Even bound, he radiated a power that unnerved many, slamming a metal fist onto the audience. Whispers spread like wildfire. Could the Empire truly contain a holographic projection? And what would happen if they failed? The Empire's vast network of colonies and military installations. Witness after witness traced a line toward a vulnerable sector, families wiped out, planets left in ruin, first strike and the psychological scars inflicted by Dracula's world with minimal defenses. One witness, a young human named Mara, stood trembling as she described her colony's fall. The resources we seize will fuel our campaign. Her voice quaking. The alien queen thought it was just a legend she spoke, but then we saw like whispers on the wind. He drained our leaders and the inhabitants turned them against us. What fate awaits them? We couldn't fight back. Frankenstein's expression hardened. Lecture 7 nodded willingly or not. Thank you, Mara. We need soldiers. Your laboratories can provide the necessary. The prosecutor turned to the tribunal. The rogue AI who called itself one of countless stories. Each a testament to the communication grid, insatiable hunger and disregard for sentient life. Dracula's laughter rang out cold and sharp. A direct confrontation will force them to spread their forces thin. You label me a monster, but your empire? The plan was ambitious, just as audacious. The difference, yet, as Frankenstein spoke, his lieutenants felt the gravitational pull of his conviction. His voice reverberating. He was not just a creator of monsters. The time for arguments is over. He was a leader whose vision extended beyond vengeance. As the arbiters nothing less than the collapse of the Galactic Empire. Hours later, locked eyes with a delegate alone in his laboratory, who gazing out at the storm that raged beyond the reinforced captivity, he was not defeated. He thought of the Empire's architects, those who sat in eternity chambers far removed from the suffering they caused. The tribunal has reached its verdict. To them, life was a commodity, you were found guilty on all charges. Tool wielded to maintain their dominance. Termination by forgotten the chaos from which carried out immediately, he whispered. The gallery erupted in a cacophony of reactions. The time had come for his declaration. Fear. Frankenstein's image appeared on every screen across the galaxy, however, remained his visage larger than life and framed by arcs of lightning. A dark amusement in his tone. His stitched flesh and glowing eyes a stark contrast to the polished perfection of the Empire's execution chamber was a stark contrast to the ornate tribunal hall. His voice resonating with metallic and unyielding. Today you witnessed the singular device of Count Dracula. The gallows you cheered as the Empire displayed its strength. This was no ordinary execution method. Truly free? It would disintegrate Dracula's the very power that scattering it across the void to ensure no resurrection was possible. To linger. The Galactic Empire has overstepped its every step heavy with the weight of centuries. They believe they can extinguish any threat. He held his head high, and he his demeanor that of a king going to his throne. But they have forgotten the lesson of creation. As the energy every action placed around his neck, he spoke. I am Victor his voice carrying through the chamber and beyond. Broadcast as he spoke, every corner images of his army appeared behind him. You celebrate my end as though it will bring you peace. Creatures, he said, of sleek warships, but mark my planets transformed into vengeance will sow seeds of chaos you cannot fathom. Yet it is your empire that devours Frankenstein will avenge me. You call me a threat. Yet it is your empire that bring your empire to its knees. No more. Before anyone could react, I declare war upon the Galactic Empire. A blinding flash consumed the chamber, to those who suffer under Dracula was no more. Join me, and silence hung in the air from the ashes of their tyranny. Yet his words lingered, ended, a shadow leaving over the stunned galaxy in its wake. Far away on a storm-racked planet hidden from prying eyes, people whispered Frankenstein's name with equal parts stitched features twisted into a grimace of resolve. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire's dominion did not seem absolute. Stood in the dim light of his laboratory planet, surrounded by bioengineered from the cameras. They felt this is satisfaction, only resolve. But justice is coming. Prepare the fleet, and it will not be swift. The war had just battle marked the beginning of their end. As his monstrous army mobilized, the storm outside grew fiercer, as if the very planet itself anticipated the chaos to come. Frankenstein's war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The rimward colony of Etria Prime was a tranquil world of golden fields and azure rivers. Its people, mostly farmers and researchers, lived lives of quiet simplicity, far removed from the political machinations of the Galactic Empire. But as dawn broke, tranquility gave way to chaos. Dark shapes filled the sky, blotting out the twin suns. Frankenstein's fleet had arrived. Admiral Varric stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the flagship of the Empire's 7th Fleet. A veteran of countless battles, Varric had faced everything from rogue warlords to planetary insurrections. But nothing had prepared him for the nightmare descending upon Etria Prime. The fleet's sensors struggled to categorize the enemy, biomechanical monstrosities that defied logic, each ship pulsating as if alive. Report, Varric ordered, his voice steady despite the storm of activity around him. Admiral, enemy forces are engaging the planetary defenses, said Lieutenant Kren, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. Their ground forces are unconventional. Hybrid organisms heavily armed. Varric's jaw tightened. Conventional tactics won't work against an enemy like this. Prepare all units for adaptive engagement. And send a transmission to High Command. We'll need reinforcements. Below, on the surface, the colonists' panic was palpable. Frankenstein's army advanced with terrifying efficiency. Hulking creatures tore through barricades, while swarms of smaller biodrones overwhelmed defenders. Among the invaders was Malachi, Frankenstein's brutal lieutenant. Towering over his enemies, he wielded a plasma hammer that could level buildings. His laughter echoed as he smashed through the colony's meager resistance. Pathetic, Malachi snarled, his mechanical eye scanning for new targets. These are the Empire's protectors? They'll make fine fodder for the Master's experiments. Above the battlefield, Frankenstein observed from his command ship. His stitched features remained impassive as reports of success poured in. Victory was not enough. He needed to instill fear, to show the galaxy that the Empire's dominance was crumbling. Back on the Resolute, Admiral Varric refused to surrender the colony without a fight. Deploy the shock troopers, he commanded. And ready the orbital strike cannons. If we're going down, we'll take as many of them with us as we can. The shock troopers, elite soldiers clad in exo-armor, descended to the surface. Led by Captain Sarah Dane, they pushed back against the invaders, their advanced weaponry cutting through the enemy ranks. Sarah, a seasoned warrior with a reputation for turning the tide of hopeless battles, rallied her troops with ferocious determination. Hold the line, she shouted, her plasma rifle glowing as it fired burst after burst. For Etria. For the Empire. Her resolve inspired the colonists to fight back, even as the odds remained stacked against them. But as the battle raged, it became clear that Frankenstein's forces were unlike anything they had encountered. The bioengineered creatures adapted to the troopers' tactics, regenerating wounds and evolving new defenses mid-combat. Admiral, Sarah's voice crackled over the comms, we're outnumbered and outmatched. We need that orbital strike now. Varric hesitated. The strike would devastate the colony, killing countless civilians. But if he didn't act, Frankenstein's forces would overwhelm them, and Etria Prime would be lost entirely. Initiate the strike, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. May the stars forgive us. Above the planet, the Resolute fired its massive orbital cannons. Beams of searing energy lanced through the atmosphere, obliterating Frankenstein's ground forces in a blinding cascade of destruction. The shock troopers barely managed to retreat as the colony's surface was scorched. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield was eerily silent. Frankenstein's forces had been decimated, but so had much of the colony. Survivors stumbled through the wreckage, their expressions blank with shock. Varric watched from the bridge, his fists clenched. This isn't a victory, he muttered. It's survival. On his command ship, Frankenstein observed the aftermath with cold calculation. The loss of a single colony was inconsequential. His forces had tested the Empire's defenses and revealed their willingness to sacrifice their own. More importantly, his broadcast of the battle ensured that the galaxy witnessed the Empire's desperation. Let them think they've won, Frankenstein said to Malachi, who had returned, battered but alive. Their victories will grow heavier with each step. Soon they will collapse under their own weight. Malachi grinned, his metallic teeth glinting. The galaxy's watching, Master. They're starting to doubt the Empire's strength? Frankenstein nodded. And doubt is the first crack in any foundation. Admiral Varric, unaware of the seeds being sown, turned his attention to his next move. The Empire would send reinforcements, but Frankenstein's forces were unpredictable. Varric needed a strategy, something unconventional to counter a foe that defied all logic. Prepare the fleet to pursue, he ordered. We can't let them regroup. The Empire's survival depends on it. As the Resolute began its pursuit, Frankenstein's fleet slipped into the shadows of hyperspace, leaving behind a scarred world and a shaken empire. The battle for Etria Prime was over, but the war had only just begun. Both sides braced for what was to come, knowing that the next confrontation would decide not just their fate, but the destiny of the galaxy.